The chill of December was in the air, and Christmas was just around the corner. But for Evan, a soldier far from home, the festive season only deepened the ache in his heart. A letter from his wife stirred a longing he could no longer ignore. Evan wasn't sending wishes from afar this Christmas. He was determined to deliver them in person. Would he find the love and forgiveness he desperately hoped for? Let's begin this emotional journey of a soldier's Christmas homecoming. A letter of hope. Evan sat alone in his barracks, holding the letter that had arrived 2 weeks ago. The words were simple, yet they carried the weight of 1,000 emotions. "We miss you. Please come home for Christmas." His wife Emily's handwriting was shaky, the ink smudged from tears. He closed his eyes, picturing his children's faces, Jake's mischievous grin and Mia's gentle laughter. The memory of their last Christmas together filled his heart with a bittersweet ache. The army had been his duty, but now the longing for home was stronger. With the holidays approaching, Evan made a decision. This Christmas, he wouldn't just send love from afar, he would deliver it in person. Would his family recognize him? Would they forgive the years of absence? As the bus ticket crinkled in his pocket, Evan whispered, "I'm coming home." The journey begins. Evan stepped onto the bus, the cold December air biting at his face. The seat felt stiff, but his heart was lighter than it had been in years. Every mile brought him closer to the small Ohio town where Emily and the kids waited. He clutched a worn photo of his family, taken before he was deployed. Jake was just a baby then, and Mia barely tall enough to hold his hand. Time had flown, and he wondered how much they had grown. Passengers around him chatted about holiday plans, laughter filling the air. Evan stayed silent, lost in his thoughts. The road ahead was long, but his determination was unshakable. Would he make it in time? Would his home still feel the same after all these years? With a deep breath, Evan closed his eyes and let a bee carry him forward. The bus rumbled down the highway. Evan gazed out at the snow-covered fields. The sight reminded him of the Christmases he had spent with Emily before the war. She loved decorating the house with twinkling lights and baking cookies with the kids. He smiled, imagining Mia's giggles and Jake's tiny hands covered in flour. But his smile faded as doubts crept in. Had his absence changed them? Would Jake even remember him? The man next to him asked. "Heading home for Christmas?" Evan nodded, his voice catching. "It's been a while." The bus slowed at a rest stop, but Evan didn't move. His mind was on Emily. Was she looking out the window, waiting for him? He gripped the photo tighter. No matter what awaited, he had to believe in a second chance. The long road ahead. The bus rolled on, the engine humming steadily beneath him. Evan's heart raced with each mile that brought him closer to home. He glanced down at the worn photograph of Emily and the kids, his fingers tracing the edges, as if he could somehow feel their warmth through the paper. He couldn't stop thinking about what it would be like to hold them again, to see their smiles. Would they be happy to see him? Or had the years and distance between them created a gap too wide to bridge? The landscape outside grew familiar, the small town he once knew, the quiet streets, the house where laughter had filled every room. Soon, he thought, soon I'll be home. Stepped off the bus, the cold winter air hitting him like a shock. The small town of Rivershore looked just as he remembered, quiet and frozen in time. His boots crunched against the snow as he walked down the street, each step bringing him closer to the one place that still felt like home. But as he approached his old house, a wave of uncertainty washed over him. Would Emily be there? Would she even recognize him? He paused in front of the door, his hand hovering over the doorknob. His heart pounded, and for a moment he wondered if he was ready for what lay behind that door. A glimpse of hope. Evan slowly opened the door, the familiar creak echoing through the quiet house. Inside, the warmth of the fire greeted him, but the emptiness in the air made his heart ache. No laughter, no footsteps. Then, a soft voice called from the living room. "Is that you, Evan?" He turned. Standing in the doorway was Emily, her eyes wide with surprise and disbelief. For a moment, they just stared at each other, as if the years had melted away in an instant. Finally, Emily stepped forward, her voice trembling. "I thought you were lost to us forever." The silent tears. Evan stood frozen, his heart pounding. Emily's words hit him like a wave. He wanted to run to her, to hold her, but the years of silence made him hesitate. She stepped closer, her hand reaching out. "Evan, you've come back. But are you truly here with us?" Tears welled up in his eyes. He'd returned, but so much had changed. How could he make up for all the time lost? How could he heal the wounds he'd left behind? "I'm here now, Emily," he whispered, his voice raw. "I won't leave again." And for the first time in years, hope stirred in their hearts. A bitter reunion. The sun began to set, casting a soft orange glow over the town. Evan and Emily sat in silence, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. "You don't have to explain," Emily finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know you had your reasons for leaving." Evan's chest tightened. He wanted to say so much, but the guilt held him back. How could he explain the things he had seen, the things he had lost? "I thought I had to fight alone," he muttered, his eyes distant. "But now I see, I've been running from the one thing that mattered most." Emily turned to him, her eyes softening. "Home isn't just a place, Evan. It's where the heart belongs." Evan looked at her, and for the first time, he felt like he might finally be home. The Christmas Eve. Promise. The night air was cold, the streets quiet under a blanket of snow. Evan and Emily walked side by side, their breath visible in the frosty air. "I don't want to be away from you again," Evan confessed, his voice full of vulnerability. "This time, I need to stay. No more running." Emily stopped, turning to face him. "You mean it this time?" she asked softly, her heart racing with hope. Evan nodded, his hand reaching out to hold hers. "I promise. No matter what happens, I'll be here. This Christmas, I'm home for good." The snowflakes fell around them, and in that moment Evan knew that this was the beginning of something new, something he had longed for all along. A heart-reunited Christmas Eve arrived, and the town was alive with lights and laughter. Yet, for Evan and Emily, it felt like time had slowed. They sat by the fireplace, the warmth of the fire a stark contrast to the chill that had lingered for months in their hearts. "I thought I'd lost you forever," Emily whispered, looking into Evan's eyes. "But here we are, together again." Evan gently cupped her face, his thumb brushing away a stray tear. "I was lost too, but I found my way back to you. I promised, didn't I?" Her eyes filled with love as she nodded. "This is my Christmas miracle." For the first time in years, they both felt whole, and the future seemed brighter than ever. The morning of Christmas Day dawned crisp and clear. The town was peaceful, with snow gently falling over the streets. Evan and Emily stood hand in hand, gazing out the window of their small home. "Do you think we're ready for this?" Emily asked, her voice soft but full of hope. Evan squeezed her hand. "We have each other. That's all we need." They smiled at the thought of their future. no longer clouded by uncertainty, but filled with promise. As they sat down to their modest breakfast, the simple joy of being together was more than enough. Their love, tested by time and distance, had been reborn, stronger than ever. This Christmas, they knew, was just the beginning of their forever. The Christmas miracle. The evening fell quietly over the town. As Evan and Emily stepped out into the crisp air, they saw the faint glow of candles in the windows of nearby homes. The whole village seemed to share in the calm, a collective moment of peace after so much hardship. Emily's eyes sparkled as she looked up at the night sky. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Evan nodded, but his thoughts were elsewhere. He turned to her, his voice serious but tender. "We've been through so much, Emily, and somehow we made it." She smiled, leaning into him. "A Christmas miracle," she whispered back. For the first time in a long while, they both felt truly at home. Together, they knew there was nothing they couldn't face. The love between them was more than a gift. It was their greatest blessing. Thank you for joining us on this heartfelt journey of love, hope, and redemption. If Evan's story touched you and you believe in the power of second chances, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Stay tuned for more inspiring tales that warm the heart and teach valuable lessons. See you in the next story.